The current dictatorship of Iran is the Islamic Republic of Iran, led by religious fundamentalists who are Shia. How did this theocratic government end up controlling the country? How did the religious dictatorship even get power at all? This current government of Iran was formed after the Iranian Revolution, which was the movement that ousted the Shah. The Shah was the previous dictator who was installed as dictator by the American president Dwight Eisenhower, the CIA, United States, and British. Before the Shah, there was the prime minister who was overthrown by Dwight Eisenhower, the CIA, Americans, and British. Before the prime minister, there was the Shah who was installed by the British and the Soviet Union. Before that Shah, there was the previous Shah who was installed by the British, but later overthrown by the British and the Soviet Union. So Iran used to be called Persia, and Persia has oil. Oil is a very valuable natural resource that people like to exploit. So the British and the Russians were exploiting Persia for its oil, and the British and the Persians were being very oppressive towards the Persian people by exploiting their natural resources. But the Russians had to withdraw from Persia because the Russians had the Bolshevik Revolution and the Russians had to take care of domestic matters. So the Russians withdrew from Persia, which allowed for the British to take full control of Persia and continue exploiting Persia's oil. And the British took a member of the Persian military, a person named Reza Khan, and the British installed Reza Khan as the Shah. Shah means king, so basically the British installed Reza Khan as the king of Persia. And the Shah, Reza Khan, changed the name of Persia into Iran, and the Shah was a very faithful puppet dictator to the British. The Shah allowed for the British to continue exploiting Iran's oil, and under the Shah, the British got to do whatever they wanted in Iran. However, the Shah eventually grew tired of the British, and the Shah wanted to get the British out of Iran. So the Shah offered support to the Nazis during World War II, because the Shah wanted to use the Nazis to kick the British out of Iran. However, the British and the Soviet Union found out, and the British and the Soviet Union invaded Iran, and the British and Soviet Union overthrew the Shah, Reza Khan, and they replaced him with his son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. So the British and Soviet Union overthrew the Shah and appointed the Shah's son as the new Shah. And the new Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, continued being a faithful puppet to the British, and the new Shah Pahlavi allowed for the British and other foreigners to exploit Iran's oil. But there was a lot of domestic backlash against the Shah because he was a very repressive dictator and a puppet of the West. So, due to the backlash, the Shah appointed Dr. Mossadegh as the new prime minister, and the Shah Pahlavi became more of a figurehead monarch. The Shah Pahlavi descended into a constitutional monarch, so he was still the king, but he was just a figurehead. And the prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, was very popular with the people. Mohammad Mossadegh was the founder of a political party called the National Front Party, which was a large Big Tent party that included democratic activists, socialists, religious people, secular people, working class people, merchants, very Big Tent party. And so Prime Minister Mossadegh stopped foreign exploitation of Iran's natural resources. Prime Minister Mossadegh nationalized Iran's oil so that Iran could control its own natural resources, so that the British and Americans and others could no longer exploit Iran's natural resources. And so the British were furious, the Americans were furious, so the American president, Dwight Eisenhower, who was a servant of the military-industrial complex, Dwight Eisenhower was a puppet of the military-industrial complex, Dwight Eisenhower, the CIA, Winston Churchill, and the British overthrew Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh of Iran, and they brought back the Shah. So after overthrowing Mohammad Mossadegh, Dwight Eisenhower and Winston Churchill reinstalled the Shah Pahlavi as the full-time dictator. So now the Shah was back in power thanks to Dwight Eisenhower. And the Shah was a very repressive, oppressive, just horrible dictator all around. The Shah had a secret police that would purge people that the Shah didn't like. The Shah was very repressive and oppressive towards religious people. The Shah would constantly torture people he hated. And the Shah was one of the worst dictators ever. And so the Shah continued to allow the Americans and the British and all the foreigners to exploit Iran's oil. And the people of Iran were getting very angry at the Shah. And also, the Shah would raise taxes on poor people. He would make poor people pay heavy taxes while he would let the rich just enjoy themselves and not have to pay as much in taxes. And so the rich were getting richer, the poor were getting poorer. And there were many different types of people opposed to the Shah. There were democratic activists who hated the Shah, there were socialists and communists who hated the Shah, and there were religious fundamentalists who hated the Shah. And of those religious fundamentalists, the most outspoken was Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. And Ayatollah Khomeini was constantly prophesying for the Shah's reign to end. He was using his religious teachings to call for the Shah to basically be out of power. And so the Shah got angry and he exiled the Ayatollah. By the way, Ayatollah is a high-ranking religious clerk, and it's only used by Shia. It is not used in Sunni. So the way you would remember that Iran is Shia is by remembering that they have the Grand Ayatollah, and Ayatollah is only used in Shia. It's not used in Sunni. And so the Ayatollah was exiled, but the Shah was very, very unpopular, and there were protests and just movements against the Shah because they didn't want that repressive, foreign puppet, awful dictator anymore. And so, back in the United States, Jimmy Carter, President of the United States, was endlessly supportive of the Shah, and Jimmy Carter loved the Shah so much because the Shah was allowing the United States to exploit Iran's oil, and so Jimmy Carter threw all of his support behind the Shah up until the very end, and eventually, the Iranian Revolution happened, and Jimmy Carter sent an American general over to Iran and told the Iranian military to repress the protests, but the Iranian military refused to violently suppress the protests. And so the Iranian Revolution happened. The Shah fled the country, and the government of the Shah was overthrown. Now, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned to the country, and even though there, as I said, there were many different factions of people, from socialist communists to democratic activists and to other secular people and just many different types of groups, it was the religious fundamentalists who ended up gaining control over Iran. And the religious fundamentalists formed the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini became the Grand Ayatollah of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Ruhollah Khomeini became the supreme leader of Iran. Now, the Iranian people wanted to try the Shah. They wanted to make the Shah stand trial for his crimes against the Iranian people. They wanted the Shah to be brought to justice. But Jimmy Carter let the Shah into the United States. Jimmy Carter gave the Shah amnesty. And so the Iranian people were very angry, and they wanted Jimmy Carter to extradite the Shah. They wanted Jimmy Carter to return the Shah to Iran so that the Shah could stand trial for his crimes against the Iranian people. But Jimmy Carter refused. Jimmy Carter refused to extradite the Shah. Jimmy Carter refused to let the Shah be held accountable. Jimmy Carter refused to apologize for what the United States had done to Iran in the past. So the Iranians got angry and they took the hostages. And that was the Iran hostage crisis. And Jimmy Carter was very hawkish towards the Islamic Republic of Iran. Jimmy Carter contacted his good friend, Saddam Hussein, dictator of Iraq, and Jimmy Carter and the United States and the West authorized the Iraqi invasion of Iran, in which Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons against Iranian people and caused some massive war crimes. And so Jimmy Carter also tried a series of botched CIA operations that failed to get the hostages out. So basically, if Jimmy Carter had just apologized to Iran, if Jimmy Carter had apologized for the United States' role in overthrowing the government of Iran, if Jimmy Carter had extradited the Shah, if Jimmy Carter had returned the Shah to Iran, if Jimmy Carter had played nice with Iran, then none of this would have happened. But basically, Jimmy Carter didn't do that. So, because Jimmy Carter was very foolishly hawkish, and he was just needlessly supportive of the Shah, things went downhill, obviously. So basically, that is how the current government of Iran ended up controlling Iran. That is how the current government of Iran took power in the first place. The Grand Ayatollah of Iran is Ali Khamenei. That's the current Grand Ayatollah. And the previous one, the first one, was Ruhollah Khomeini. Some people seem to confuse Khomeini and Khamenei. But no, the current guy who wears glasses is Ali Khamenei. And the previous guy was Ruhollah Khomeini, and he died way back in, I think it was 1989 or something. He was the first supreme leader of Iran. So the current one, second one, that's Ali Khamenei. And going back to Dwight Eisenhower, he was a massive puppet of the military-industrial complex. And Dwight Eisenhower is the very first post-World War II president. Dwight Eisenhower is responsible for so many different war crimes. But of course, people like to rehabilitate Dwight Eisenhower because he gave a speech on his last day in office where he criticized the military-industrial complex. But his actual policies were very, very supportive of the military-industrial complex. So, I mean, come on, you have to judge people by what their policies are and what they actually do, not what they say and whatever they try to rehabilitate themselves as. Same thing goes for Jimmy Carter. People think that he's so dovish and so anti-war, when really Jimmy Carter was very, very hawkish on Iran, in Afghanistan, and in so many other places. So, I mean, the people who rehabilitate Carter and Eisenhower and Kennedy's foreign policy, those are probably the same people who rehabilitate Trump and Obama and Nixon's foreign policy. So, come on, just no rehabilitation and make sure to understand the history of Iran well, and all history in general.